Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial about creature design. I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a 3D version of a concept sketch like this one. Hopefully this will show you how to go about creating your own creatures and sort of just showing you how to all the steps involved in the process. So I hope you find this useful. So I'm going to start with Blender here, and I'm going to start with a default cube. Let me just set a few settings here. First of all, let me disable the grid because it's kind of annoying to me. Then add in a background image, and I'm going to add my sketch here. That's like so. And first thing you want to do is subdivide your cube. So Control 2, subdivide it twice, should be good. And let me also just Control R to add in a split down here and just delete these 4 verts like so. Then add in a mirror and make sure it's mirroring on the right axis and enable clipping. So in the end you should end up with something like this, and now it's being mirrored on both sides. Scale it up to kind of create the skull area. You know what, you could actually just subdivide it once like this and apply it, delete the one side, just remirror that like so, and I got a few more words to work with. So go into wireframe mode and just sort of try and decide where the main mass of the skull is going to be. Alright, that should work pretty well. Let me bring this up a little bit and bring this forward. So we've got just the main mass, the main shape of the skull. Alright, and now we want the jaw. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this, Shift D, and then Control M and then Z to mirror it on the Z axis. So something like this. Maybe just isolate it. So just hover over it, press L and press P to kind of take it out. Scale it down a bit. Control N to flip the normals. Control R to add a loop cut here. And just kind of try and make sure that it makes sense from the front view as well. So this is kind of like a bone or horn or something like this. So you gotta keep that in mind. Kind of make it a bit narrower. Same goes for this one, just a bit narrower in the front. So we just want a rough shape. We don't want to be too specific about how it looks right now. I'm just kind of thinking about the shape. That should work fine. We can subdivide these once just to get a smoother silhouette. You can also enable this little button here that'll sort of make the verts stick to the surface, which is a little less confusing. I think I'll add another loop cut over here. Okay, so now we want the neck, so I'm going to add in another cube. Alright, let's start working on the neck. So in general the throat should be like narrower towards the bottom and broader towards the top. You can add in another loop cut here just to control the thickness in the middle here. So it goes from narrowish to broad to kind of narrow down here. Like this should be good. And you just want to make sure the area where the neck and the head connects, you want to make sure that's kind of consistent. Alright, that'll work. And now just start extending this. And it might look good from the side, but you always want to check from an angle just to make sure it's consistent. So right now you can see it's too broad towards the bottom. So just when you're doing this area, think of a cobra, like it sort of broadens towards the neck here. And this is obviously inspired by sort of a dinosaur design, reptilian thing, but that should work pretty well. Let me enable this and just make sure the silhouette is good. Right, so now we have that. Actually, I should smooth these as well, probably work better. What else? Let me just extend this to get a sharper edge down here. Okay, so the eye, I don't know, I guess we can leave off doing the eye for now. We can in fact sort of narrow the skull here. Like that. And then just add in maybe another cube here. You know, not a cube, just use this perhaps. Just duplicate it, Shift D, press P, and select selection. That'll isolate it out again. Alright, time to do the horns. That'll work. Alright, let's do the rest of the... Well, these can be sculpted in actually, so that doesn't matter too much. Alright, so now that I've got this shape all blocked out and something to work with, I can start merging them together. So that's really easy to do. But first just apply all the modifiers. So select each section and just apply them. And if you want to be fancy, you can just subdivide them once more, but I think that's not really necessary. Okay, now you want to join them together using Boolean operations. So there's a couple of ways to do that. First way is to just actually add a modifier. Select the skull, add a Boolean modifier, this one right here, and set it to, not bold, Boolean. Set it to union and select the other piece using the little eyedropper tool. So just select, say, this one, the neck, so it'll join the two together. If you hit apply, that should actually, yeah, they're joined together like so. Now it does leave some leftover meshes, so you can just delete that. Right, so you could do that for everything. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to use the bool tool, which is, I believe, part of the hard ops package. So this is an add-on that you can get. Just Google for it, and I like to use this one quite a lot. So it just lets me select two meshes and hit union, and that joins them together, and then just make sure to hit apply, delete the leftover meshes. Again, select two of them, union, and apply, and delete anything left over. Union, and apply, and delete. And for this one as well. So now I've got like a very ugly mesh that's all joined together everywhere. The next step is to actually go into edit mode, select everything, and press Ctrl T to convert it all to triangles. And this will just kind of help a little bit when you start sculpting. So now that we have everything as triangles, I'm going to duplicate this mesh and just save a backup of it, and then select this one again and go into sculpt mode, and I'll just expand this here. And right, so now I'm ready to start actually sculpting these shapes. So the first thing to do is to enable time topo, and maybe set it to something like 10, the resolution to 10. That should be a good place to start. Let's see how it goes. It might be a little high, but oh yeah, the mirror should be set to Y, not X, so like that. Yeah, that works a lot better. So yeah, 10 is fine. I mean, let me just start smoothing out all the different sections here, especially where they join together. Now, I'm not very used to sculpting in Blender. Normally I use ZBrush, but I'll use Blender and see how it goes. In a minute I'll just switch to my tablet, because that'll probably make it easier. Right, switch to my tablet here. Right, so I've switched to my tablet and I'm ready to start actually sculpting. So the first step is probably just to kind of smooth out all the jagged areas here. I just like to tap everywhere on the mesh to kind of give it a bit more resolution, and then I'll come in with a smooth brush and just smooth it out a little bit. Make sure you maintain the volume. Now there are keyboard shortcuts assigned to each brush, so you can press like 3 for the clay strips, 4 for the crease brush, and fill deepen 5, 6 is flatten contrast, and so on. So G is assigned to the grab brush, so that makes it very easy to access it. And obviously Shift is the smooth brush. Alright, time to start actually sculpting. I guess I'll start on the neck here, because it bothers me that it's too smooth. So I want to add in some muscle definitions here. So I'll start with the clay strips brush, and if you look at the background image, you can see I've got some muscles going on here. So I guess I'll start with that. Start adding in some muscle here. Now you could have done this in the block out stage as well, but I kind of like to sculpt this stuff. So I mean, the sketch isn't very detailed. We can just kind of interpret how it should be. Let me just edit the curve a little bit to give it a smoother fall off. Just crease it, kind of wanted to have a sort of a muscular neck, like a lot of bulging muscles and so on. Again, don't use a very high detail setting. It's better to keep the detail as low as possible during this stage. We're essentially still busy with block out actually. So basically it's just a matter of adding in some creases and some bulges to kind of simulate the muscle areas. I guess I'll start working on the jaw right here. So the first thing I do is to actually add a bit of more volume to the jaw, especially this lower part of the jaw here. Just give it a bit more volume, and maybe use a crease brush with a higher detail setting to crease this area here. Right, that should work. Let me work on the eye right here. I think the eye is pretty important. I'm going to keep hollowing this area out a little bit more. Just lightly going through it like this. Alright, something like that should work just fine. Let's see what it looks like from an angle. From the front. Not very sure. Not very sure about the front yet. Guess we can add in a bit more volume here towards the top. And so the eye is kind of small in my sketch. I'm not sure I should make it quite that small, maybe a little bit larger. I'm not sure. Can always add in a sphere to see how it works. Alright, let me add in a sphere for the eye. Back into edit mode, just click where you want the eye to be and Shift A, add in a sphere. I'm going to actually decrease the detail. Don't need that much detail. Something like that should work fine. Just subdivide it once and add in a smooth. That'll give you a lot better idea. I think I'll make it a bit larger. Something like that. Okay, I think this eyebrow needs some work. If you notice here on the sketch, it's kind of sharp. It's got a very sharp transition there. I think I like that a bit better. Right, I'm sculpting the wrong object here. So for the eye, just add in some creasing on a lower detail setting, of course. Just push this back a little bit. It's too prominent towards the back here, I think. I want it to sort of blend into this. Next up, I want to try and start working on this horn here. So just start adding a bit of flesh towards the base of the horn here, and then use a crease brush, kind of define it a little bit. And you'll notice on my sketch I have some creases on the horn itself, so I can actually use the clay brush and sort of just add in some, like it's been growing there, like those ridges you see on horns of animals. Right, that looks pretty good so far. I'll need to add in quite a bit more detailing and so on. I think blocking out the teeth with bits of geometry is going to be the best way. Same way I did most of this. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm not sure I like the design of these teeth too much. I'm actually going to make them sort of show a little bit more, kind of like an alligator. We'll see how that looks. So let me switch back to my mouse here. And I'm out of sculpt mode again, so I think for a start just add in a cube, scale it down. Let me work on a different layer so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just creating sort of the shape of the tooth here. And I'll just copy paste this one all over. Something like that. I'll just hit apply and set the origin to geometry, to the center. Right, let me just kind of close up this hole like so, and then just sculpt it a little bit because this tooth looks way too clean, so I'm just gonna add in a bit of variation. So back to my tablet. I think I'll use the flatten brush here. And I'll also disable symmetry. Maybe go a little bit higher on the detail. Just adding a little bit of randomness to the shape of the tooth. And maybe also just use the grab brush to give it a bit more volume. Something like that should work fine. So let me start placing these teeth. Just going to mirror them as well so it's less work. So set origin to 3D cursor and just mirror it on the y-axis like so. And I'll just start placing them. So the teeth are pretty uneven. So I'm just trying to keep that in mind. I think I kind of would be pretty cool if I bend them forward like this. So right now that looks pretty terrible. First thing to do is probably to just move the tops of the teeth inwards towards the skull. Alright, and also just disable symmetry, kind of randomize the teeth a little bit. Alright, and also pretty important, add a bottom set of teeth, so I'll just mirror it and make it smaller. Just move it downwards a bit. maybe just rotate them as well. Alright, so I'll actually worry about the lower teeth a bit later. I'll just let me just separate them out. So Control L to select all of them, and press P, separate them out, and I'll just move them to another layer. Alright, so let me start by sculpting these so that they fit inside the skull better. I'll start with a clay brush as always. Making the teeth look like they're actually growing out of the skull, so add some flesh. Alright, let's add in those other teeth. Like so, and I'll just have to bend them inwards a little bit. It's pretty useful to separate the teeth like this. It just avoids confusion, so only the bottom teeth or the top teeth get affected by your brush strokes. I actually forgot to take away this. Let me do that now. So you'll see on the one side it's opened up and on the other side it's not, so it's kind of frustrating. I'll just mask this out and disable symmetry and just start sculpting this away. Probably better make sure the detail size isn't too much. You can also isolate the certain sections of the mesh by using Alt B. That's very useful. Lets me get inside the mouth, so I can kind of get this under control. Just hit Alt B to undo that, to remove the the mask and so on. That's good. Let's see what it looks like now. Looks fine. I don't like the eye. The eye looks kind of weird. I'll just do like so. It looks kind of more intimidating if there's no pupil. Kind of like this. Alright, so now it's just a matter of keeping the detailing, keep going with the detailing, going finer and finer until it's at a point where I like it. So you got to think about how the skin would fold in a situation like this. It can't all just be smooth. Well, you actually want it to be smooth in important areas, like some areas on the neck, just to show that the muscle structure is really there and it's really working. But in some areas, it's kind of cool to have folds of skin. It just makes it a little bit more interesting to look at and a bit more intimidating in this case. So that's pretty useful. I think I need to add more detailing eventually to this horn structure here. Same goes for the bottom one. I'm not really sure what I want to do with it yet. It's really cool if it could be like some kind of crystal thing, like I did a while back for a different monster. Not really sure. So I guess I'll keep thinking about it for now. And then in the meantime, I'll start doing these horns on the back here. So the first one is about right here. I'll just start raising out a bump here, kind of like so. Alright, and then another one here. And probably a couple more actually, lower along the neck. Maybe one more here, like that. I'll just use the grab brush to give them a bit more volume and so on. And after that I'll use the crease brushes to make them stand out a bit. Right, let me get a crease brush here. Just crease this out. And maybe a clay brush to add some distortion along the edge, kind of like those other horns towards the front. Same goes for this one. That would work. All right, looks pretty good. Well, it needs quite a bit of work, but I'll keep going. Let me disable symmetry for this front part again. And so yeah, that's pretty much the scope of this tutorial. So now I have like a working creature sculpt that I can then take further and you know, add in some more detail and eventually perhaps texture it and so on, or at least do a bit of painting on it. Would be kind of cool. So yeah, I mean, I guess I could cover that in a later tutorial. I guess this tutorial's been dragging on a bit, so kind of take a look at that a bit later perhaps. So yeah, that's how you go about coming up with like a 3D version of a 2D sketch. It's all about just blocking it out before you start, and then just kind of keeping the sketch open and just referring back to it every now and again. And with a bit of practice, it kind of comes easier, you know. So yeah, I hope you found that a little bit helpful at least, and if you want to see me do any other kind of tutorials, just let me know in the comments. I'll obviously make this file available for anyone who wants to inspect it. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.